So we're sitting here with Coach Sam Davis at Watterson High School, and Coach, you've had quite a run here, and I've done a little bit of reading on how you've evolved over the years. Interesting career. You start off here at Watterson, here for a couple of years on the girls' side, even though you started coach football,
Right.
which you played as a high school kid. Then on to Otterbein, boys, Hartley boys, Gahanna boys, New Albany boys, and now back to Watterson.
Yeah.
Over 40 years, over 500 wins, so quite a run. Did you play basketball in high school?
I did not. I just played CYO and some intramural stuff, but I was a helmet head. I mean, I love football. And back when I was in school here at Watterson, football was really a big thing. So
Watterson football, I don't know, has it ever gone away?
Not really. Matter of fact, last year was amazing again, but Coach Kennedy does a great job. He understands the history of school. He played here. And so my dream was to be the head football coach at Bishop Watterson High School. But the Lord had a different plan, so I went in a different direction.
So you had a clue that you wanted to coach early?
Yeah, I started coaching when I was in college. I went to a really small parochial grade school, which I loved, and I loved the pastor there. And they needed a coach for their baseball and basketball team. I knew nothing about baseball, but I did help a guy with baseball. But I did coach me and Jimmy Conway, God bless him, he's gone. I don't know if you knew Jimmy or not.
Did not.
Great guy. So we coached together, and I had a lot of fun with that, and that's how I started. And when I was in college, my position coach was a principal. When I was in high school, my position coach was the principal at Watterson, and he let me start coaching the freshman team and football as an assistant, and that's how I got my Watterson time.
Now, is that Mr. Durant?
It was John Durant, great man. Really,
legendary guy.
Yeah, I can tell you stories about him. He really was a big influence in my life. Things didn't quite work out for me going to college right away. Thought I was going to go to Marshall and play football, and it didn't work out. But John contacted me because I was working in the warehouse at the time and said, hey, look, if you go back to school, I think you'd make a great coach. And if you do that, then I'll be able to maybe get you over here at Watterson and coach. So that really was a big part of me, staying with the coaching and going back to school. Great man.
What did you teach?
I started with phys ed, general science,
Okay.
Which I really enjoyed, especially the general science part. And I started teaching at Rosemont, actually. I don't know. I was coaching football here at Watterson, but I was teaching over at Rosemont, which at the time was an all-girls school. And I learned a lot about discipline and how to handle kids there. It was a great experience for me. And I taught phys ed there. And then I came here and I taught general science and phys ed. When I went to Otterbein, it was difficult for me to teach because of the schedule at Otterbein I spent a lot of hours there with the basketball team. And so Joe Boyle, the Lord was so funny. I had such a connection. Joe Boyle and I coached JVs together at Watterson, and he was the principal at Hartley. I saw him in a hardware store, and he says, you're going to be coaching. You don't really want to be making lesson plans and doing this and that, if you're coaching at college, grading papers. Why don't you come over at Hartley and be a dean of students? So I went over and was the dean of students there at Hartley, which was a great experience. Hartley was amazing. I loved it there. And then their basketball gym came open with boys. And so I went from the girls here to the boys at college and into the boys at Hartley.
So you had a passion early on. See, I looked at it, and I had a brother who was involved in coaching, and when I graduated from Bishop Reedy, I went over to St. Mary Magdalene, which, by the way, is the cradle of coaches. All right, there were a number of coaches that grew out of St. Mary Magdalene, and I had a little league baseball team the summer after my senior year in high school, and I was passionate, crazy about it, loved it to death.
Right.
But I didn't know that was a career for me at that point. And so it took a few more years, but for you, it sounded like it hit right away.
Well, I love sports, period. And I knew I wasn't good enough to ever take my playing career anyplace, but the passion for the sport. I mean, as you know, we played a lot with that, intramurals, and you and I played rec ball later, and I did all that touch football stuff, but it never satisfied my itch of the real competition of sport, of the game. And Friday nights, as you well know, they're really special. And football, it's special because the locker room experience is so different. You got 70, 80 kids in there all wanting the same thing. The testosterone's going crazy. And then you go out and football Friday nights are pretty much fun. And basketball is the same way. I mean, you're 2 feet away from the court, from the fans, and it's just keeps my motor running. And another thing is just being around young kids. Some of my friends say, man, this world kids today, and I tell them all the same thing. The reason you say that is because you're not around them. Kids today are as great as they've ever been. So I'm really blessed that I have the privilege of still working with them. We're passionate as coaches, but our players are passionate too. And I just think that, being around them, conditioning with them, working with them, laughing with them, talking about, what's going on in school, boyfriends, girlfriends, all that. It's just, I don't know. I think it's an affectionate way of them showing you they care and you showing them they care. And it's just a real positive thing.
Yeah. You know what I find, and again, not all coaches are like us or like me or like you, whatever, understand that, but like egos, you don't own one when you coach.
No.
Because so many things. You better be able to make fun of yourself in front of those kids. And they appreciate it. They love it.
And everybody, doing the same thing. I know it's a very important part of it. But the truth of the matter is it's all about players. And you know that, and I know that. And when you're blessed enough to have good players, good things happen. So when you have a season where you got great kids but maybe not as good a players, you're not going to win as much. And I think that all those things keep you humble and keep your ego in check because it's not really what you do. It's how fortunate you are to have the kids that you are. And I've honestly, Ray, some of the teams that I've coached that didn't have great records, we also had great times. And the thing is, in my opinion, coaching's about relationships. And like I told you about that team I coached, I'm not going to tell you what year it was unless you ask, but I still see a couple of those kids that played for us during that time. And they have great stories from way back then. And I think that says a little bit about how blessed we are to be coaches and have that relationship with kids.
You've coached all these sports. You've coached, of course, basketball. You coach football. I guess you coached a little baseball, cross country. Am I missing anything?
Well, I had 1 year of soccer.
1 year of soccer.
Yeah, when I knew nothing about it. And I was real honest with the AD. It was Mark Hughes from Gehenna, and we had a great relationship. And one of their coaches had an incident and had to leave the JV coach in the middle of the year, and it was the girls' team. And so Mark came and asked me, and I said, Mark, I don't know anything about soccer. He goes, it's the same thing as basketball. You got to guard people, you check them, and pass. He just said, we need somebody that can relate to kids. And so I coached soccer for 1 year. And by the end of the year, we were having so much fun. It was crazy. And I did learn a little bit. So it all worked out fine.
So you
again, that gets back to the real truth about coaching. It's really not what you know. It's just what you do. And the head coach was great. We practiced together. I learned some drills. I took it seriously. I wanted to do right by the kids. That's what coaching is. Coaching is if you can get your kids to buy into what you're doing and you can get your kids to buy into each other, you got a chance to have a lot of fun.
When I was at Grandview, I coached boys tennis for a number of years.
I do that.
And, I'll never forget, to me, the one of the neatest things that happened, my last year coaching at Grandview, I had a boy who was playing basketball and he was a soccer kid, so he was on these ultra successful soccer teams. Mm-hmm. We had success in basketball. He's a good little athlete, good little player. And I had coached camp tennis for Grandview Parks and Rec, and I'd seen him come up, and he had a little bit of a game in tennis. Mm-hmm. And so I was talking to him before his, during the season. I said, so what are you going to do this spring? He goes, I'm playing tennis.
No.
I said, really? This is his senior year. He's going to go out for tennis for the first time. I said, you're going to play tennis. And he had this ear-to-ear smile. And I thought to myself, I said, why now? He goes, because I've always wanted to play it. I said, how much fun do you think you're going to have? He goes, I'm going to have a ball. And I said, now you know why you're going to have a ball? Because he was so intense in both soccer and basketball. You'll go out there and have a great time playing this because what are your expectations?
Right.
And he was like, well, I said, exactly. You don't have a lot. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to have the time of your life. This is a sport you can play the rest of your life. I said, I'm really happy. And I walked away from that conversation. I thought, isn't that the way it always should be for every sport, for every one of our kids? How many of them, less than a percentage is going to get a scholarship
Right.
at Grandview.
Right.
Less than a percentage will ever get paid to do this.
Correct.
It should always be that way. And I lost perspective, I'm sure, a number of times with these guys. But, that was a healthy conversation I felt really good about. And you talk about maybe some of your better teams and coaching experiences. I thought my best one, we were 6-15. 6-15. People, hey, the year you went to the Final Four, when you had Lachey, Collier, those kids, all these different years were your better years, right? You had the most fun. Not necessarily.
Right.
This team was so bad, and they got to the point where they were average. And I was so proud of the journey, being able to get to that point. And I thought they traveled, they became as good as possible.
Right.
And our practices were awesome.
That's the John Wooden rule. It's not all about winning. It's about getting to your potential.
Yeah.
And if you can get kids to believe in that, that's awesome too. But I would agree. I think if you've got a team that, no matter what their record is, if you got a team that's buying in and your practices are fun every day, but not funny.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
It was like you walked off the court and gave
Sweating.
you what they could give you.
You're
All
good.
right? How much did you talk about winning in the locker room?
I think it's important, so I didn't hide it. Because, like we've been pretty blessed here the last few years. We've done some good things.
Right.
You look at the pictures and you see the locker room. When kids come down after winning the big game, it's a big difference than when kids come down and you lose or you don't play as well as you know you can. But I really try to get our kids to focus on what we're doing in the moment that'll lead us to where we want to go. And if we're in the process and we stay there, and I know that's a lot of Nick Saban stuff, and he's a great coach, obviously, and his book was amazing. But stay. I've always kind of felt that. I've always kind of felt like if you're always talking about the future, it's not going to make any difference what you do, what you say. It's James. You got to be a doer of the word, not a sayer of the word. But the bottom line of it is that if you can keep in the process every day of getting better, then you got a chance to reach those moments. And so that's what my focus is on.
I don't remember us talking a whole lot about winning. I never wanted to talk about that. I just figured the end product, when it was over with, it would take care of itself.
Right.
Let's work hard. Let's get better. Let's have fun. Those were our goals at Grandview when I was coaching. And I thought it was pretty simple.
Well, I tell our kids all the time here at Watterson and all a little bit different perspective, but we try to keep the Lord in our hearts first. I think that's really important at a school like this. But the other thing is, man, we want to create memories. That's what we want to do. And hopefully those memories will be positive. We're not talking about, going to regionals. We're not talking about winning CCL. What we're talking about is creating relationships and memories that when you go back to your high school reunion in 20 years, you're not going to be living glory days. Like, remember what I did? But you're going to be reliving relationships. Man, you remember in the locker room. You remember how this was. You remember how that was. If we can do that, Ray, we're doing a good job.
All right. So personally, you did some things changing from boys to girls, from high school to college. And that was one of the things over the years I would shake my head and say, I'm not sure I could have pulled that off. What went into your thinking when you did all of this? And because you went back to girls again, you're back. The circle has been completed, dude.
Well, here's what happened. I really was coaching football here. That was my and then, man, we just had some great players here. Joni O'Brien, and I shouldn't mention names. So I start doing that, I'll leave somebody out. But we had great players,
Right,
okay?
right.
And so we were winning in basketball, and it was like I didn't really know what the heck I was doing, you know. The way I got the basketball job, we were really good, and the girls' basketball coach quit in like August. She got a college job, and so my position coach was the principal, as I mentioned earlier. Yes, sir, Mr. Durant, was what I said a lot. So he calls me in his office and told me, said, hey, Sam, I need to see you. I got a stipend you might be interested in. Well, I thought I was going to be the weight room guy, you know, so did a little stipend for doing weight room, and things would be good because at that time you were making a lot of money in the parochial system. So I was all about this. And, but anyways, I sit down with him and he goes, he didn't ask. He goes, you're going to be our new girls basketball coach. I said, that's how John was, by the way. And
No,
I
he
love
wasn't the only principal in the Catholic schools like that.
I know.
I just want you to be aware of it. There was
Yeah.
a guy on the west side and the south side that sounded very similar to that.
I loved the way he was. I said, John, I don't know anything about basketball. What do you mean? He goes, yeah, but you worked with girls over at Rosemont. He goes, and that's important. They got some players. You're going to be okay. I'm going to put you in study hall with Mike Winters, who was the boys basketball coach at the time. And he goes, and Mike will tell you what to do every day in study hall. And I'm like, John. So, you know, you would do the same thing. I took it seriously. I studied it a little bit. I did this, I did that. I was a nervous wreck. But the girls were so good. I mean, they were so good. The Karen Taves and the Jackie Shuffle, leading scorer, went on to play at High Dominican as leading scorer at High Dominican. I mean, I was just blessed. I had all these girls that could play. And then Mike started going to camps and clinics, and I got into motion, which I still run and love. Mike Winters was probably the best man-to-man coach I've ever been around in high school, and I learned a lot about that. So we really started going in the right direction, and I was working basketball camps at Otterbein for Dick. I don't know if you ever came to any, but we had a really good camp, and we struck up this relationship, and his assistant coach was leaving to join the business world, and he asked me if I would be interested in moving to the men's side of the game. I thought it would be interesting to do that. And then again, I mean, the Lord has been really good to me when it comes to players. I got to coach Dick Hemphy and Steve Brown, who were amazing.
A couple guys could score a little bit.
Oh my God, Dick Hemphy was the player of the year in the country. And so I had a lot of fun there, but it was a lot of hours. I mean, you know, I don't know Sunday nights you're on the phone. Monday's a good night. Tuesday night you're in a high school game after practice. Wednesday you play on the road wherever at home.
Right.
Thursday's a decent night at home. Friday you're at a high school game. Saturday you're at a game again. And, you know, all over again on Sunday. And I had 2 children at the time. And matter of fact, when I was at Otterbein, we found out that Marty was pregnant for Kyle. I remember I was in Dick's office when she told me. With 2 kids and 1 on the way, there was a lot of hours. And when the basketball job came open at Hartley, and full honesty, I loved high school kids. Nothing against Otterbein men, they were great.
Right.
And the crowds were good back then at Otterbein, especially when we played Capital. So it wasn't about the atmosphere, it wasn't anything like that. It's just the age, I think. My niche is high school, and I kind of knew that. So when the Hartley job came open, the principal talked to me about it, and I interviewed and was fortunate enough to get that.
That still
back
Joe?
to boys. Still Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, so Joe Boyle hired me
right.
again. So that's how I got into boys. And then, you know, I did the boys thing for a really long time. And
So why back to Watterson doing girls?
yeah. Well, things that my last year at New Albany was not. You know, we were 15-7, and people were still not happy with what was going on. I was there for 20 years. A lot of good memories. Coached some great kids. Some of my favorite kids ever. And that I still have relationships with, thank God. But it was time. They were ready for me to move on. So I came, and when I left there, Tom Wolford, who is another good friend of mine, who was the coach here,
Outstanding coach here.
very successful,
Right.
And talk about big shoes to fill. But anyways, he was when he got the Watterson job. I remember he called me up and came over. And we went down in my basement and we talked and watched some tape and stuff. And so he kind of remembered that. And he just called me up and said, hey, we're going to be pretty good. And I think maybe the kids could really, benefit, from somebody like you coached them. So I said, okay, well then I won't tell you, but people who applied for the job, I didn't think I was going to get it, but it worked out and I was able to get the job. And so here I am.
And we talk about relationships of players, but also the relationship we have as fellow coaches, administrators that you're around, and that's what it's always about.
Yeah.
I know this guy, you network a little bit here and there, and people see your work and they say, you know what, if we ever get a chance, this is the kind of guy we want in our program. And you've been a great example of that. You've gone from place to place, but for the most part, it's always been a positive move.
Yeah. I've been blessed. The Lord's pushed me in a lot of different paths, and all of them have been pretty good. But the relationship with coaches is really special because you can go out and talk to somebody about hoops or whatever, and they'll listen and all that stuff. But man, when you go out with the coaches, it's just different. And I remember just like Coach's Corner at the Coliseum. I mean, it's the best.
So much fun.
And we were so blessed to live in that era. I mean, my wife would get so ticked. I'd go there
all day
10 o'clock in the morning, come home at 11 o'clock at night. But it just, there's a bond there that's so special. You can talk about issues you're having with your team. You can talk about, and in basketball, it's such a simple game that is so difficult. I mean, you can argue with somebody about how to pivot forever. I mean, and like my wife,
inside pivot versus, the 2 foot versus one,
It's whatever. And it constantly evolves. And like people say, like, why do you go to clinics? I learn something every time I go to a clinic. It's just a great game, and it affords you an opportunity to have these relationships with young people and with coaches. It's just a special way to live your life. It really is.
So what do you think? And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Coaching today's kids versus 40, 30 years ago, how different is it for you?
I read a great article about this, okay? It was about tough coaches. The bottom line of it is this. It used to be like the way John Durant coached. I've mentioned him several times in this meeting.
Right.
And, he would take your chin strap off. We had those old helmets, the string helmets, and he'd bang you in the head. Not hurt you, but man, your ears
got your
ring.
attention.
He got your attention. He might grab your shirt. Okay, but I knew John loved me. I knew John wanted me to play as good as I could play. Not for John Durant, but for Bishop Watterson High School. And that was ingrained in all of us as players. And John worked extremely hard, and we knew that. So he could do those things. And that's how we were raised. It was just different. You go home and say, Dad, I had 2 sacks today. I played really well. Great, take the trash out. Okay, those days are gone. Okay, now it's different. Okay, so the bottom line is that though you have to understand that Bobby Knight, it's gone. Right. Bobby Knight, I went to all his clinics. I loved it, man. It was the best clinic going. He'd be kicking basketballs, using profanity at a manager because the basket wasn't straight. Those days are gone. So the article I read about tough coaches was this, like, you can act like that, my way or the highway, and this is the way it's going to be, and I'm going to demand, and then your kids or whatever, and you're going to end up getting out of the game, or you're going to end up, being really frustrated. But tough coaches are those who can understand, hey, that doesn't work anymore. I have to be tough enough to change my style. So now with kids today, people say they're entitled or this or that. They're just different. And they're products of how they're raised, and they're product of where the world is today, and it's a different world.
It is.
So if you want to coach today, you have to find a way to say things in a positive manner that make kids understand that they can do it in a different way. For example, instead of saying, Jesus Christ, you're the worst I've ever seen, get your head up and dribble the ball. You have to say things like, hey, Ray, you're so much better than that. Get your eyes up, man. You can handle the ball and see the floor. Well, I think that's what tough coaches do. I think tough coaches understand culture's different, things are different, but the game's the game. And how can I get my kids to play the way I want them to play without saying negative things to them? So, or coach them in a way that they can be receptive to. And as a coach, every team's different. You have to find what works with each team. That's really a big part of what I think coaching.
I bet you 20, 25 coaches I've gone to their practices.
Yeah.
And there are some guys out there, Lon Cougar out at Oklahoma. When he was at Oklahoma, I sat. It was the most amazing experience I've ever had. He was the most positive guy, never raised his voice, never used obscenities. And his players came up to us afterwards, shook our hands. Thanks for coming in.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I emailed him afterwards, told him what kind of experience I had. And he said, Coach, we're going to put this in our locker room because this is the kind of program we want to be.
Great.
And I was just beyond belief. He blew my mind. All right. So what about girls basketball? You're coaching in a heyday right now. Popularity, the WNBA is going crazy. Caitlin Clark is the queen. Do you see it at the high school level at this point, or has it hit here yet?
Well, I think it's actually been happening since I've been here, which is crazy because when I came in, there was a high school article in the National Federation of Coaches that was talking about the decline in girls basketball. And it was big, it was huge. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, and I don't think we have time to get into all that, which things I believe about basketball. It's a very difficult sport to play, and sometimes at a young age, other sports are a little bit more attractive, and then there's so much club today that they get into that, and so our numbers are really down. Some really big Division I teams, for example, in this area do not have freshman girls basketball teams.
Right.
So it's just it's a numbers game that way. Then Caitlin Clark comes in, and I'm telling you, Ray, I would rather watch her than almost anything. And it's not because I'm a girls basketball coach.
No, I get it.
She
can play.
She can play. The passes she makes, her demeanor, everything, and it's just exploded. It really has, I think made a lot of people pay attention to the sport. And I've been blessed to coach a lot of good teams and. In basketball, the crowd plays a big part in it. It really makes a difference. And we had a good team last year. We had a very good player, and she was such a great leader and got the kids to buy in around her, very unselfish player. And, we were able to play and to win a district title and go on to the regionals. And I'm telling you, Ray, the crowd and the passion that the school had and the following that we had at that time was really kind of special. So, coaching the game is the game. I mean, there's a difference between girls and boys, as we all know, but the game is still the game, and you can still do some things. And I'm personally loving it right now because there's certain things I can do with the girls where we have to, our whole thing is like we have to get a bigger advantage, okay? So we want to make sure that, if you got an 18-foot wide open shot, that's great. That's a good advantage. But if you can ball fake it, have somebody driving at you and you can dump it to somebody that's got a layup, that's a bigger advantage. Girls buy into that. I think sometimes with my guys, they just a lot of times felt that I ain't passing up this 18-foot shot.
Right.
So, and nothing against my guys, I loved them. It's just different.
It is a different mindset.
And different does not mean better, bad, or anything. Right. It's different. It's just exactly that. It's different. But I'm telling you, I'm loving it. I think I was put in this position. Again, the Lord blessed me with the opportunity to be here. And I think it's going to be a great way. I think I'll be here as long as they'll have me.
I think kids here are blessed by having you around. So I'm loving hearing you say that you're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to overdo it, but the people I get to work with they're not going to let me not have energy. I mean, they, first of all, have an energy and a passion.
I was going to say, ever since I've known you, you've had.
And if I lose that, I will. I'll leave it then. But as long as I'm enjoying watching tape and breaking tape down and going to clinics and making plans and enjoying the moment of the game, and the Lord blesses me with health, everything's good. But Ray, a lot of it also depends on your staff. And I had the assistant coach of the year in the state of Ohio, Mike Lanza. I mean, he's amazing.
Mike's a good man.
Oh, my God. He's a great coach and a better man. That's the way I describe him. And then our Brad Hammock was with me at New Albany, and we got a new young girl, 21, 22 years old, Lauren Smith, she just brings this energy that we need so bad. And Ryan Lewis and Matt Hughes, who are our freshman coaches, girls love to play. Matt Hughes walks in the room, oh, Coach Hughes is here. I mean, he's just got that relationship with the kids. So, I've been blessed enough to surround myself with really, really good people. And the energy that, like our first meetings, this Thursday, August 15th. I mean, and they're into it. They can't wait. The emails like, my coach, I mean,
That's good stuff.
when you have that going,
Yeah.
come on, man. It's all good. It's all good.
All right, so here we go. If I come watch your team, and I have, actually was here last year with one of your games.
Okay.
I was doing a little scouting for someone.
That figures you're going to scout somebody so you can try to beat us. But
No,
okay, go ahead.
no, I was scouting individuals for my daughter.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is
okay.
my plug for my daughter at
Okay.
Kenyon College.
Yeah,
at
she's
Kenyon
doing a great
University.
job. Mary's doing a great
You
job.
know, and I came to watch, and I picked up on one of your players and
Okay.
told my daughter about that. So,
Right.
I was like, hey, I know you like this girl, but I kind of like this girl. Your philosophy as a coach, what would I walk away from saying, okay, this is what they emphasize here at Watterson women's basketball?
Well, we have, obviously, like I said, we want to make sure that our kids are a product where somebody comes and looks up, they know that, that we are playing number one for the Lord. And I want people to know that, And number two is when you see us play, I want you to see a team that is disciplined, but at the same time, you can see a team that maybe has a togetherness. They play well together. Somebody's on the floor, they pick them up. They're not talking back to the officials. So I think it's really important that we're good people. I want people to leave knowing that we're good people. And then I want people to understand that they're coachable kids, that they can relate to us. You can see that, when you walk away, whether we win or lose, you're going to say, that team's well coached. They play together. That team's fun to watch. And then, we hang our hat on defense, and Mike's in charge of defense, so I can't take all the credit there, but I think we get after it defensively. And so you're going to see a team, I hope, our philosophy would be you see a team that's disciplined, that cares for each other, and that plays really hard. It's a simple game, and sometimes we overcoach and underteach. And I think, we talk about X's and O's. It's really your Jimmy's and Joe's. We all know that.
Right.
But the bottom line of it is that if you can get kids believing in each other and playing together, it doesn't make a difference if you're playing man zone, what offense you're running, continuity, motion. It doesn't make a difference. If they buy into each other and they buy into you, then things are good. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about girls basketball and to talk about sports in general, because high school sports is special. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit and have some fun, catch up a little bit.